Today we're doing something a little different. I'm doing something real time instead of speeding it up like I normally do. So this is a quick Chickadee painting done with leftover paint from my palette yesterday. This palette paint is a day old, and some of it's actually starting to harden on the palette. And there's two reasons. The dark paints a lot of times do dry really fast, and then also I use some Maljip, which accelerates the drying time. So even some of the lighter colors were starting to dry. So I'll talk about the paint and just what I'm doing here. So yeah, just it's always sad to waste expensive paints that are on your palette and already mixed up. And chickadees, because they're like black and white birds, I mean, to me, they're almost like a blank canvas of a bird. You can do so much with your colors when it comes to a chickadee because like I said, it's black and white, and I like to get creative with everything else about the chickadee. So yeah, any color goes with it, and so whatever's on my palette this is a great way to just use up leftover paint. Now I've recently done some spring dogwood flowers, and so I'm going to add, I think I might have done that with this paint that's on my palette. And these are the yellow cornelian cherry dogwoods, so they're not the white and pink flowers, they're yellow. Okay, so um, I'm going to start with the black that's mixed up on my palette and then some brown. And the brown is some sort of transparent orange color. And the black is a Payne's gray mixed with that transparent orange. It's not a direct black. I often mix blacks with Payne's gray or ultramarine mixed with a transparent orange or red color. Okay, so this is a vermilion red, and I have a rose doré, which is maybe quinacridone or some other kind of, I'm not sure what's in the rose doré. It's very transparent, and this is mostly a vermilion from Holbein on my palette, mixed with a little bit of, I think, cerulean blue and cadmium yellow, but mostly it's like a orangey red color. And I'm doing it probably because it's leftover. It's thinner than a lot of the layers I usually do. So a little thinner and more watered or thinned down with solvent, which can be troublesome because it can crack. You'll have to make sure that the paint, unless you want that look, um, is thick enough that it is binding together and not separating. I do like sometimes with the darker colors to use a stiff brush that leaves scratches in the paints. I don't know why, I just kind of like that look. Um, be creative with, if you don't have the perfect brush or the perfect supplies, sometimes you'll get interesting results using a less than desirable uh, brush, or even medium like a panel that you aren't as happy with as you'd like. Sometimes it surprises you with what you achieve with it. And one of the main problems I think with using leftover paint is that it, although it can be a plus, is that it's very diluted. A lot of times there's too much white in the paints because I usually do my whites last, so I won't have enough of the darker colors on my palette. But on the flip side, for some smaller paintings that are very simple, it's really nice to have it's almost, sometimes I'm surprised at how good the paintings turn out because because all the paints are more the colors are more muted and toned down, and really um, more desirable than they were on the first pass, on the first painting I made on the palette. It's like teaches me that maybe I should actually make uh, more toned down paintings And I did a video on ugly colors once, and it's kind of that concept that sometimes when the paint's just right out of the tube or just mixed with one other color, it's just too strong. And just having all these more subtle colors are more like what you'd see in nature anyway. So, and they're just more interesting than um, the more saturated and pure tones, to be honest. Um, Too much of a good thing is, I think, what tends to happen a lot of times, especially with um, novice painters or even intermediate painters. Now, here's what I was talking about. There's lumps in this paint because it has started to dry and it's white, but it's because I had Maljip in it. And so I need to get all those lumps out. I don't want lumps on my painting. So if I see a dried section, I'm pulling it out. So I don't know how much I'm actually saving of this paint, but I am getting a little of the mixed color that's on my palette, and but I did have to kind of start over with a lot of new paint because there were too many lumps in the leftover paint, if that makes sense. Yeah, you definitely don't want stringy lumps on your painting. And then I'm just using a linseed oil and Gamsol for my solvent, and then a little bit of Maljip was already mixed into some of the paint. And Maljip is like a paint accelerator and then helps thicker layers not separate, or like sometimes they will, if they have really thick layers, as they oxidize and dry, sometimes they'll kind of deflate and not retain their um, full effect. They'll kind of just shrink. And I think deflate's the best word, like a balloon that's kind of sagging. So the Maljip helps just hold this shape. All right, so um, I'm trying a new setup with my phone, and I apologize for the wobbling. Sometimes I touch, my arm bumps. I have the camera so close that um, I keep bumping it, and then also even the brush is knocking on, the long handle of the brush is knocking on the camera because I have it so close. So I'm still working on my setup, and this is really not as, I'm not painting with as much finesse with my hands as I normally do because I'm trying to navigate around the camera. And as you see it, every time I'm trying not to hit it because then it just wiggles and um, starts moving the camera all over the place. And so I feel like this is sloppier than it would be if I wasn't filming it. And so I guess maybe you can see the results of having it. I mean, even if you're a beginner and your hand's not very steady or confident, that you can still do a lot and come up with a product that's unique, or a painting, I should say a product, but a painting that's unique and kind of quirky maybe, but it doesn't have to be like every stroke perfect. Sometimes it's the little hesitations and wiggles and um, unsteadiness that can actually add a nice endearing touch to your work. So here I do go back the next day. I took this painting on my Photoshop. I took a picture and really noticed that the beak was not, I wasn't happy with the beak. So I'm going to fix the beak here. Photoshop is a great tool for, like, take a picture or even take it on your phone and then look at it, as for beginners especially, because you'll find that if you've missed something or not noticed something in your painting, something's awry, you'll see it uh, when you can just see the whole thing better. Your eyes can adjust and see if something's off in your painting, and then you can go back and fix it. Now, if you see the chin is kind of sticking out, I decide to keep that, even though I could easily like take some red paint and just make it smoother below his chin, but I decide that's one of the quirky areas that I want to keep. Now I do decide to add a little more to his belly, so I'm just mixing up some more leftover paints and going over the belly at least. His belly looked too deflated. And kind of like accounting, now I have to just go back and adjust everything else on his belly. So I'm adding a little more of the yellow to his belly, but I'm going to add red this time in it, just a touch of the red, and just mixing directly on my brush. And then I'm just going to go add that right there. And then I don't show this, but I kind of fixed his foot a little because I painted over his foot a little too much. So I just added a couple more strokes of black to his foot. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and a good way to not waste paint.